a crucifixion at the high school. Then they seized him and led him away, bringing him into the high priest's house. But Peter was following at a distance. When they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him in the firelight, stared at him and said, "This man also was with him." But he denied it, saying,
I do not know him.
A little later, someone else, on seeing him, said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said,
"Man, I am not."
Then about an hour later, yet another kept insisting, "Surely this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said,
"Man, I do not know what you are talking about."
At that moment, while he was still speaking, the cock crowed. The Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the cock crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly.
"You're a brick," he always told me. "You always got my back, always got my 6. You saw something in me that I've never seen in myself. And I'm no damn hero. I'm not even a good friend. They were dragging him away, the principal, some of the teachers, so many crazy kids, angry kids. One of them came up to me as it was all happening and said, 'What are you going to do about it, huh?' God, think about it now. I don't even know if he said it as a threat or as a plea. It scared the hell out of me. 'Hey, I hardly know him,' I said. And one of the vice principals gave me a long, hairy arm pointing at me. 'What about this one?' he said. Now that was a threat. I just shared a lunch table with the guy. We weren't friends or anything. Wouldn't you know it, one of the lunch ladies was there, her face all scrunched up under her hairnet. 'Oh, you're a friend, all right. You don't share lunch every day without being a friend at least.' She gave me this sneer. People started looking my way. And that was it. I just turned tail and ran. And I thought we were safe. I thought all this shouting and pushing at school was just something rebellious, exciting, but, just ultimately just safe. It's like when you're playing moonlight tag as kids. It's all fun and scary, and you're crouching down in the dark, hardly able to see anything, and the footsteps of the other team members are just kind of passing by, and you're trying not to breathe, and you're frightened of being found, but all the while, someone's going to shout out, "Everybody's in free!" The game it'll end, and the adults, they'll call you in, and there'll be a snack and pajamas and a warm, safe bed. But what happened here is no game. And the adults were screaming even louder than the kids. "Kill him! Kill him!" My childhood was a lie. There's no such thing as safety in this world, only a good hiding spot. I know I let him down. I know I failed. Some brick just crumbled under pressure. Some friend. I wasn't there when he really needed me.
These things Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, thought, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes. Weighing about 100 pounds, they took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in linen clothes, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a tomb in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby. They laid Jesus there.
Of course, it's always a tragedy when someone so young has been taken. I'm not saying it shouldn't have happened. I'm not saying it should have happened. It's simply tragic, beyond my control. So there you are. It is what it is, as my students would say. Listen, I understand why they were so angry with him. I mean, he was a handful in the classroom. He was a strange boy, raising his hand at the wrong time, lurching us off topic, sharing one of his little stories when a simple "yes, sir" would have been quite nice, thank you. Surely I did not appreciate those times when he would directly challenge my authority by disagreeing with me in front of the class. Whether or not he turned out to be right in the end is beside the point. There was one teacher in that room, and I was it. I was it. I paid to have the boy buried. Does that surprise you? No one else was going to do it. I may not have liked him, but everyone deserves a decent burial. No headstone, of course. You wouldn't want to make the boy into a martyr. You wouldn't want to turn his tomb into some kind of holy site for gang pilgrimage. I was there at a distance of about 50 yards or so when his body was lowered into the grave and the stone was put into place. Even at that distance, I was conscious that it was one of my students that we were burying. Strange or not, he was one of mine. Time to retire, I think. Time to give up teaching. It's just too painful.
Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her into his own home. After this, when Jesus knew that all was now finished, he said, in order to fulfill the scripture, "I am thirsty." A jar full of sour wine was standing there. So they put a sponge full of the wine on a branch of hyssop and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the wine, he said, "It is finished." Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit.
Look at my face. Take a look at it. You see the bruises? You see the cuts, the stitches? I thank God for them because I don't think I could stand looking at myself in the mirror without seeing the beating I took. When they came for my friend, for my cousin, I was not going to take it lying down. I jumped right in. And of course, I was pathetic. I mean, take a look at me. The scrawny arms, the sunken chest, the vertical challenge. I mean, I didn't have a chance. They beat the hell out of me. That's where these bruises and cuts and stitches came from. They didn't let up until he spoke. "Stop it. Just stop," he said. And surprisingly, they did. Then he gave me that look of his, "You can't keep this from happening." I opened my mouth to argue, but he said, "You got to do something for me." His mother had been called in by the administrator and was standing there, looking like she was going to melt into the ground. "Look after her," he said to me. "I can't do this without knowing she'll be okay." So I stopped squirming, stopped resisting. They let me go, and I walked over to his mother, and she put her arms around me. She looked after me as we watched him die. I've never felt so helpless in my life. Thank God for his mother, and thank God for the bruises.
When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." After conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. For this reason, that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one on whom a price had been set, on whom some of the people of Israel had set a price, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me.
What did you know? And when did you know it? Isn't it what they always ask the slimy guys in the courtroom or when they're appearing before Congress? Do I look slimy to you? What did I know and when did I know it? Did I know they were going to kill him? And did I know that when I ratted him out? This feels like the end of me. Sometimes I clear out all the BS and just give it to you straight, but it was never straight in my mind. They came at me sideways, the plotters, the schemers, the folks who wanted Jesus dead, out of the way. It was like out of my peripheral vision. That's where they came at me, from a kind of moral blind spot. And when they mentioned something about a college scholarship, I mean, that was the only way college was ever going to happen for me. Not from my ma, not from some burger flipping minimum wage job. So that was the price, a future, my future. All I had to do was give up on him, give away his future. Now it's the end. I don't have a future. I got nothing. I don't know. I don't know what I knew. I don't know when I knew it. It's like trying to put back pieces of a stained glass window that got broken. Some of those pieces can maybe fit back together, but most of them are just shattered when the window fell and never fit in again. The window will never look the same again. It'll never be right. Just like me. When evening had come, and since it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself waiting expectantly for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate wondered if he were already dead, and summoned the centurion, who asked him whether he had been dead for some time. When he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the body to Joseph. Then Joseph bought a linen cloth, and taking down the body, wrapped it in the linen cloth, and laid it in a tomb that had been hewn out of the rock, then rolled a stone against the door of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where the body was laid.
I didn't really have the letters L-O-S-E-R written on my forehead. It just felt that way. Every time I walked into that lunchroom, all eyes were on me. I'd take out a sandwich, a napkin, a bag of chips for my lunch bag. Doesn't sound too complicated, does it? A sandwich, a napkin, a bag of chips. How many times did the napkin get ripped? The chips go flying out of the bag as I tore it open, or the sandwich hit the floor because my hands were shaking, because Everyone was looking at me. They talk about pressure on the girl taking the last-minute free throw or the guy making a 4-foot putt on TV. But that's nothing. Just try an average day in middle school. That's real pressure. Except when he was around. Except when Jesus sat with me. Then it didn't matter. Not the people looking at me. Not the cheap bag lunch. Not the Goodwill clothing I have to wear. Or my crazy curly hair. He made me laugh. He made me feel okay about myself. The way he said my name. The way he said Mary. Well, he made me feel so safe and loved that I could stop thinking about myself much at all. I wish I were thinking more about him right now, about what they did to him, how horrible it was for them to end his life, to kill him. I wish I were thinking about his mother and brothers and sisters and everybody who loved him and relied on him. But right now, all I'm thinking about is myself. All I'm feeling is lost. God, if only I could see him again. If only I could hear his laugh, see his smile, hear him calling out my name.
When it was afternoon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice,
Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani,
which means,
my God, why have you forsaken me?
When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, and someone ran, filling a sponge with sour wine, putting it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink, saying, Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Now when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in his way he breathed his last, and said, Truly, this man was God's son.
Who do you listen to? I mean, when everything depends on it. Life and death, you know. Who do you listen to? I've been the school security officer for the last 5 years. Rotated out of the patrol car, out of my uniform, into a shirt and tie and walking the halls. You wouldn't believe the kind of stuff these kids try to pull. They must think I'm an idiot who can't smell smoke in the bathroom, spot kids sneaking into a supply closet, or see drugs passed around the parking lot. But once they get nabbed a couple of times, then they figure out I'm not the dummy they thought I was. The funny thing is, it's those kids, the shady ones, that I end up closest to. I mean, they got family situations, peer pressures, bad friends, and sometimes just plain bad luck. A mountain of troubles bearing down on them. My heart goes out to them. They need somebody to listen to them. Maybe not cut them some slack, but at least try to understand them. This Jesus character was definitely not one of them. The Jesus kid was simply off my radar, never in a legal scrap, though sometimes I heard some of the teachers and administrators whining about him. That's why when they came for him, it didn't make any sense to me. It wasn't so much the trouble kids who joined in with the hatred and the hollering, but it was a lot of the nice ones. Get him, they shouted. Kill him. Control the crowd, they told me. Don't let that Jesus guy get away, they told me. Go to the shop teacher. We need a hammer and some nails. It just got worse and worse. A horror show of screaming and blood and pain. Screaming was in my head, too. No, no, no. This isn't right. Do something. Stop being afraid and pick up your feet and do something. But who do you listen to? Your boss? Your fears? Your doubts? Your conscience? I just stood there frozen while it all went down. And at the end, I heard the Jesus boy say something like, Forgive them, Father. I heard that. I think maybe he was talking about me.
And this is the judgment. The light has come into the world, and the people loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For all who do evil hate the light, and do not come to the light, so that their deeds may not be exposed. But those who do what is true come to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that their deeds have been done in God.
I can't sleep since my son died. I don't know how to anymore. Does anyone understand how precious one life is in the eyes and heart of their parent? Do they even stop to think about the late-night feedings, the worried and sleepless nights, the difficult conversations, the terrible struggle to understand and to be understood? How a child's sleeping face looks like it's always looked, no matter their age or their place in life. It's precious. It's the very image of love and beauty and hope. How can such a life be thrown away, taken without justice or reason? Let me do the same to you. Let me take your heart and break it in pieces. Let me take your life and trample it underfoot. Take your soul and wrench it out by the roots. Let me do that to you. But he won't let me. My son won't let me. Because he knows how precious one life is. Even the life of one of his killers. Even your life.